Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. It's 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Briggs, Southers, Calanche, and Soboroff are present, and we have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We welcome everyone attending to this morning. All public comment will be heard during item 2 on the agenda. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of the speakers will be: a speaker in this room will go first. Then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you are free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinions shall be deemed off topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. For those in the room, please submit a speaker card to one of the officers who will give the card to the board secretary indicating you wish to speak during the meeting. If you are logged into Zoom, please raise your virtual hand. For those in attendance in the meeting who are present, if you are disruptive, it will be cause for your removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. At this time, we're going to item 1 on the agenda, the report of the Chief of Police. Good morning, Chief Moore.
Good morning, Commissioner President Briggs, members of the Commission, Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Inspector General, Mr. T. Fink. I'm going to report on a number of events. I'm going to narrow it to just a few, one of community engagement, one as well as most recently our efforts to combating street racing, and particularly in the backdrop of the Fast and Furious movie series that just released its most recent edition. I'll speak about some officer-involved shootings involving an animal and in custody death, crime, as I do each week, as well as our personnel strength. Regarding our outreach efforts, this past week I want to thank Chief Alan Hamilton and the Valley Bureau personnel, where they gathered faith leaders from throughout the San Fernando Valley to meet. Last Wednesday we spent a couple hours together and talked about the various efforts to continue to see the crime reduction that Valley Bureau is experiencing year to date. They have a 9.4% reduction in Part 1 crime, and reflecting all the way back to 2019, which was a pre-COVID time, overall Part 1 crime in the San Fernando Valley is enjoying a 4.5% reduction. I do believe that in discussions with the faith leaders as well as a number of community volunteers that were there, it's directly tied to the engagement that our officers and command and personnel there enjoy with various communities, both the business community as well as the faith and residents community, in problem solving. We did have a number of questions and discussions about improving traffic safety in the San Fernando Valley. That is a very pressing matter, and even more pressing has been the increase in hate crimes in the San Fernando Valley, which year to date has a 8.5% rate of increase. This is contrary to the overall decrease in hate crimes that we're seeing in the city and is enjoyed by the 3 other bureaus. And most striking about that is that the hate crimes in the San Fernando Valley year to date total 64, when in 2019 that number was 23. So the efforts of education awareness, also enforcement. If you see something, say something, working with identifying those individuals who may be involved in hate instances that may not amount to a crime, but reaching out and discussing, identifying those individuals so the department can investigate and ensure that that conduct is addressed through some accountability of awareness, as well as investigating instances of mental health concerns or other cries, if you will, for help or assistance that these actions can sometimes indicate. I want to thank the California Highway Patrol and their leadership that last Thursday brought all of us together, including Sheriff Luna, myself, and others, to hold a press conference in the Mid-Wilshire area dealing with the release of the Fast and Furious movie series the following day, and anticipating that release, that the copycat effect would be taking effect, and we would see an increased level of street racing, sideshows, and the associated dangers, including the loss of life that's associated with that. I'm proud of our efforts in working with the agencies, law enforcement agencies, as well as our prosecutors. There was a legislator there that was also supportive of increasing the consequences for those engaged in this very dangerous activity. Over the weekend, I'm thankful for the men and women that worked on focusing on those traditional locations where we've seen, in the aftermath of these movie series' release, we've seen crowds gather, and we've seen residential and business communities suffer from these sideshows and these exhibitions. I'm happy to report that, by and large, with the exception of South Bureau, we avoided seeing these gatherings and seeing the illegal and dangerous activities. However, the challenges still remain. As I indicated, in South Bureau, we saw a number of these groups gather, and while we were able to disperse many of them, there are some that did result in arrests and impounding of vehicles. Tragically, I also want to report that on the 6th Street Bridge, this iconic location, tragically had a 17-year-old that fell to his death this past week when climbing upon one of the arches in order to post apparently a social media broadcast. He slipped and fell to his death. Tragic set of circumstances. Our added patrols will continue at that location, and our vigilance to counter such reckless actions. And yet, and tragically, we see that location, while it has spawned a great deal of pride in Los Angeles, it has also unfortunately served as a backdrop now for tragedies such as this. Next item I'll talk about will be an officer-involved shooting that occurred on the 9th of May at approximately 10:25 in the morning, where 77th Division uniform officers responded to a report of a vicious dog in the area of West 70th Street in Vermont. When the officers arrived at the scene, they observed a female lying on the roadway bleeding from a dog bite to her left leg. A few feet away from her was an additional male victim also lying in the road, and that individual was struggling to restrain a large male pit bull. When the officers arrived and approached, they observed that the individual's hands were still in the dog's mouth, and he was fighting to keep the animal's mouth open. As that occurred, a second man stood nearby holding a wooden broom handle in an effort to prevent the dog from fully closing its jaws. In an effort to rescue the male, the officers devised a plan that involved separately deploying a fire extinguisher, a less lethal 40mm round, and a taser. Unfortunately, all these proved to be ineffective. Believing the male victim was in jeopardy of sustaining serious bodily injury, an officer utilized his pistol and fired one round at the dog at close range. The dog was struck by the gunfire, stopped fighting, and died moments later. Both the male and female victims were transported by LA Fire Department to a nearby hospital. The woman sustained a serious injury to her left ankle and was admitted into the facility. The male suffered minor lacerations and was released, fortunately, that same day. The owner of this animal has yet to be identified, and representatives from Los Angeles Animal Services responded and transported the remains to their shelter. No officers were injured as a result of this incident, and Force Investigation Division responded and will conduct an investigation, the findings of which will be brought before me and my report with recommendations forwarded to the Board of Police Commissioners. Next report is an in-custody death that occurred on the 12th of May at approximately 11 o'clock at night. On that date, at approximately 11 o'clock at evening, Newton Division uniform officers conducted a traffic stop of a single male occupant, later identified as Antoine Broyd, a male black, 35 years of age. He was a driver in a vehicle. That stop occurred at Central Avenue, north of 74th Street. As the officers made contact with Mr. Broyd, he was asked to exit the vehicle. As he exited the vehicle, he suddenly armed himself with a black semi-automatic handgun. One of the officers attempted to restrain him, and the individual attempted to escape the officer's hold. Mr. Broyd lunged forward, and during that brief struggle, discharged his handgun, sustaining a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his neck. He immediately fell to the ground. Officers moved the handgun away from him, and he was handcuffed. The fire department rescue ambulance responded to the scene, transported him to a nearby hospital where, unfortunately, he subsequently was pronounced deceased. A loaded black Smith & Wesson model M&P 9mm semi-automatic handgun with a single spent 9mm casing was recovered at the scene. Mr. Bird's vehicle was a white BMW X3. It was impounded. No officers were injured, fortunately, in this incident or anyone else. Force Investigations Division did respond, and I want to thank our family liaison unit who, in immediate aftermath of this, reached out to identify the individual's next of kin. Given the backlog and delay with the coroner's office due to their critical staffing needs, the formal identification of Mr. Bird was delayed until they could formally make an identification. However, we worked with investigative information that was on the scene to identify the next of kin and to reach out and begin conversations with them regarding this tragic event. Again, this is an investigation that will be completed by Force Investigations, and my report forwarded to the Board of Police Commissioners for your final determination. The outside, last issue is a non-tactical unintentional discharge that occurred outside the city, in the city of Glendale. I'm sorry, in the city of Ontario. At 4:30 in the afternoon on the 13th of May, an off-duty officer assigned to Central area was at his parents' residence. The officer was cleaning his personally owned department-approved duty pistol in a bedroom. Once completed, the officer assembled and reloaded his pistol with duty ammunition. Several minutes later, the officer performed a function check of his pistol, not recalling that it had been loaded. The officer pulled the trigger and inadvertently discharged one round, which was lodged into a bedroom wall. Fortunately, no one was injured during this incident. On-duty personnel from the Ontario Police Department responded, and they'll complete their independent investigation. Force Investigation Division detectives also responded and will complete an administrative investigation, of which, again, that report will be forwarded to me and then brought before the Board of Police Commissioners. Transitioning over to our crime picture, we continue to see reductions in violent crime in all categories, with a 10.3% overall reduction in violent crime. We have a 27.5% reduction in homicides. That's 39 fewer homicides than the same period last year. In regards to our overall violent crime, that we have 1,229 fewer violent crimes this year versus last, and compared to 2019, we're essentially even overall overall violent crime, but the challenges remain in homicides and aggravated assaults. In regards to our property crime arena, while we enjoy reductions in all of our property crime categories, the exception of that is with personal thefts. In that regard, we have a 13.4% increase. This is an area of our crime picture that has continued to change and is adding additional increases week after week now for now 5 months. The particular increase in thefts that is occurring on the west side of the city, Wilshire and West LA specifically, in regards to retail thefts. We've identified the involved retailers. They are major retailers, and we're working with them to improve their abilities to prevent these type of thefts from occurring, while also ensuring that our arrests, which have doubled in regards to arrests for these type of offenses, are being properly reviewed for prosecution when appropriate, particularly on the habitual thefts and organized thefts. On the other picture, the other aspect of our personal thefts is the theft others, which is involving primarily catalytic converters, and that occurring in the southwest portion or South Los Angeles. There, as well as auto theft in the South Los Angeles, are on the increase. That is while the city enjoys an 11.9% overall reduction in motor vehicle thefts. So we are working with South Bureau Chief Woodyard and his commands to identify where those catalytic thefts are occurring, as well as auto thefts, to identify what we believe are organized crews that are responsible for this. I want to thank Deputy Chief Pitcher, who's our Chief of Detectives, working with our TRAP program, which is an LA County regional effort to combat organized theft, particularly auto theft and related components, for their work in this area. They have made a dramatic impact on the downtown area, which saw a similar surge in this activity just months ago, and I expect that we'll see similar success in Southwest as this is occurring. Yesterday, we also had our senior staff meeting where I heard from each of our 4 geographic bureaus, as well as the Office of Special Operations, including our chief of detectives, on their identified summer crime community safety plans. Their work is specific to each of the 21 areas across the city with added deployment, their community engagement, their crime prevention efforts, and I am encouraged by their continued energy and their commitment to work with our communities to see that these crime trends continue to go down, continue to go back to our pre-COVID levels, but also that as different aspects or parts of the city are not experiencing similar success, that we're laser focused in targeting the underlying influences of that. What are the contributors to that, whether it be offenders, victim behavior, and or the locations involved. Just as a quick recap on officer-involved shootings, they remain, we had no other officer-involved shootings during this last 2-week period, so we remain at 9 year-to-date versus 8 last year-to-date. Our 4-year average is just over 10. In custody death, the individual who I remarked upon earlier brings our in custody deaths to 3. This year, that number was 1. Last year, our 4-year average is 1. Moving over to our personnel status, it remains largely unchanged with 9,059 sworn personnel. That's 401 underdeployed in our sworn ranks, and our civilian professional workforce stands at 2,618. That's 87 personnel underdeployed. Our reserve officers has increased up to 430, and we're also seeing our number of our volunteers as we exit COVID and have the ability to do outreach and engagement. We're seeing increased numbers of interest of individuals who are willing to step forward and be a volunteer with the department. We're just under 2,300 of those individuals. Again, I want to throw my kudos out to the Valley and West portions of the city who have excelled in their community engagement and having and identifying individuals who are willing to volunteer. Lastly, in regards to an update, there was an attack, a vicious bee attack that occurred involving one of our volunteers in which he sustained a severe number of bee stings, as well as unfortunately fell as he was attempting to flee this swarm of bees and suffered head injuries. I spoke with him again this morning, and he has been released, I'm happy to report, from the hospital. He is recovering from both the bee stings as well as the injuries, the facial injuries, and I'm hopeful that he will make a full recovery, and I'm grateful for that. And that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, there is something that I'd like you to speak on that was not mentioned during your report, and that is the in-custody death of an officer, former officer of the LAPD, who was recently arrested for child molestation. I believe those are the allegations. Can you speak to what we know so far with regard to that in-custody death, if we know anything?
Well, the officer was the former officer who had retired in March of this year. I want to be respectful of his family and his privacy interests, had some longstanding health issues and had been away from work for some time. And following his arrest and being placed in the custody of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, it's my understanding this past weekend that his medical condition worsened and that he was transported and was receiving treatment from a nearby hospital where unfortunately he did not respond successfully to that and passed away. The allegations involving his off-duty conduct with other family members have been reported on publicly and are very concerning to me and disturbing in the nature of them. We are investigating and we'll continue that investigation into his assignment within the Los Angeles Police Department and his activities to ensure that these allegations, while unproven but nonetheless substantiated with a criminal filing, what potential or what evidence is there of any overlap or any type of similar conduct occurring in any department related activity. We have identified none to this point, and it is unclear, but having said that, I recognize that these type of offenses are also generally habitual and can be pervasive in the sense of your activities away from just, say, a family setting or otherwise. So we're going to turn over, look to each of his activities, each of his assignments, in an effort to identify whether any such conduct as alleged occurred within the department.
Thank you, Chief. One last issue before I ask other commissioners whether or not they have any questions for you, and that is our personnel strength. This year, there has been a marked decline in our personnel strength. The trajectory is not headed in the direction I think the department and the mayor wants. Instead, it's heading in the opposite direction. We're now down to 9,059 sworn officers. Realistically, by the time we get to September, do you believe that number will drop below 9,000?
It's certainly is possible. The effort that we have is that 9,000 is not a magic number. I understand it may be from a psychology standpoint, it may strike someone as a particular waterline. But I believe that the numbers that we're at today are below that waterline already. Our staffing numbers should be, on the mayor, under Mayor Garcetti and continue with Mayor Bass, our commitment was to rebuild this current fiscal year to 9,500 on a way of restoring the hundreds of positions that were down. As a reminder, just 4 years ago, we were at over 10,000 personnel in our sworn ranks and over 3,200 in our civilian professional staff. So we do have a strategic plan that works on two major fronts. One is being the best recruiters in America, both in our sworn and civilian ranks. That is going to be an absolute requirement for us to build our way out of this deficit. Secondly, is that we need to improve our retention. The ability to attract is important, but the ability to retain personnel, within the last 3 years, we've seen our attrition rates, like many across law enforcement across America, have increased 20 to 25%. I believe that we can and are taking steps to counter that with working conditions and with the desire to address employee concerns about the demands on them here. A critical concern of that is having sufficient staffing to do the job that we're asking them to do, to have the appropriate technology that is modern and is state-of-the-art so that their work is efficient and that they're not unnecessarily burdened with manual processes that we know in the industry can be automated. There are steps also to recall individuals who've recently left the organization, and we're beginning to see interest in that area. So the retention side is important to me as it is on the recruitment side. I want to thank Commissioner Soboroff and the Los Angeles Police Foundation for their support on the recruitment side. Their housing allowance is now it's well over 40 personnel that would likely otherwise not be members of the organization as recruits, but for the housing allowance that the foundation established. Before the council today is a budget that is a promising budget that Mayor Bass supports in that proposal that is going to continue our efforts to rebuild, but also include important hiring incentives and challenging and setting the stage for the department as well as the personnel department for us to improve to achieve what her goals and ambitions. We have an absolute focus on this, and I want to thank that the workforce that is here. We have reorganized on top of that in order to try to streamline operations and to have a much smaller workforce still serve the members of this public in an engagement process and an enforcement process and a balance of problem-solving efforts that is not singularly focused of just responding to calls. And in doing that, we'll continue that work. But I am encouraged by Mayor Bass's continued support, vocally as well as in her budget proposal and her office's personal involvement. Deputy Mayor Public Safety Brian Williams is now holding bi-weekly meetings with senior staff within this organization as well as with the personnel department to identify roadblocks and opportunities that we need to take advantage of. And I believe that her office's continued and personal involvement and attention to this will see the type of results that we need. Again, we're also in a very difficult environment, so we've got to acknowledge that. But I believe that the finest law enforcement agency in America can also be the best recruiter. We know what we need to do. Now it's going out and executing it.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Soboroff.
Thanks. You answered 2 of the 3 questions that I had, Chief. The other one is this grass is greener attitude of people who are leaving the department, and this idea that, oh, I'll just work closer to home and make a little more money and be more appreciated. It's my understanding that the grass really isn't greener, and that some of these officers are wanting to come back. Are we welcoming them back with open arms, or can you talk about that?
Yes,
aspect?
absolutely. So we all recognize that when an organization's under a great deal of stress, and individuals as well, that people look for equity. They look to feel like they're being treated fairly, that they're respected, that they're being heard. We have seen people leave the organization believing that other agencies in the region or outside this region, other states, offer a more productive and positive work environment. And part of that's also been fueled by financial incentives, both financial incentives being offered by agencies as well as financial incentives as to the cost of living and the quality of life and those perceptions. And while I don't believe that in all instances in which we've lost employees under such circumstances that we'll be able to recover them, I am seeing and we are hearing of individuals who are expressing desire to come back. And I'm grateful for that. We will, of course, vet each individual to ensure that they still remain qualified for this position of this responsibility, this privilege of being a police officer. But we are seeing a number of individuals begin to express an interest, and some that have already rejoined the organization. And I'm proud of our command officers who recently stepped up, and there was a group of these individuals who actually stepped forward and said they'd like to have their stories heard. And there's these short vignettes of their personal experience, very self-effacing, very mature of them to just kind of call out to others that are contemplating the grass is greener concept of what that they're available. And perhaps there's changes that we can't affect, but there's others that these perceptions aren't necessarily right or accurate. Lastly, I've encouraged, and it's now an expectation, which is just a standard good business practice, of our command officers meeting with employees that are contemplating a move. Recent move within the organization is that we generally, when individuals are contemplating these moves, they don't necessarily tell their supervisors. They may have a conversation with a watch commander or something, get their advice, who many times encourage them to stay. But we don't know this at a command level. So some recent changes within our personnel function is to identify those individuals when other agencies start asking for backgrounds and snooping, if you will, for this person being a potential candidate with them. We want our command officers, excuse me, to be notified of that, and for them to have the opportunity to sit down and discuss and explore the issues. Again, if somebody wants to work at a location, a city that surrounds a lake and involves waterboarding or water sports, we've got some limits to what we can do. Not waterboarding, thank you. But many times, the instances of perception of how operating conditions or technology or equipment exists in other agencies is not reality. They're reading the marketing material. So I think those kind of conversations are going to improve and help us. But lastly, I'll close. We also just have to acknowledge this is a difficult environment.
Yes.
And it's a challenging one as an agency and as a city, but we are also offer so many positives. And I think we can, in balance, address both acknowledging our success and the opportunities, but also acknowledging and working on work conditions and wages and so forth that keep us on par with those that are competing for these officers.
Chief, you talk about how the department and personnel, by virtue of direction, is spending more time together to improve the situation for a prospective recruit. What do you say to the public today? If you want to be an officer, how long is it going to take?
Yeah.
Who do you call? And where do you see improvements? And where do you see things that still need to be done. I bumped into someone that said that they made a call. I talked to them about, hey, why don't you give it a call? I did, but but they told me it's going to take a year.
No.
And they got misinformation.
Sure.
So that information has to trickle down to the person that's going to be on the phone.
So our commitment is to hire individuals who are willing to take this, who are willing to participate in the 7-step process, when there's no shortcuts to become a police officer in this organization. It's a 7-step process of testing and evaluation. Anyone who is willing to devote the time, we have the schedule to have them from date of application into an academy seat in 90 days.
In 90 days.
And that is our commitment. And I believe that frankly, even that is an extended period of time in 2023 with the technologies that we have. We are not performing at that level. There are a rarity of instances in which we're achieving that mark, but I believe it needs to be the majority. And that's why, again, the process improvement, identifying what is the status quo, what are the actual number of days that each of these candidates are going through, what are the, again, process improvement, what are the hiccups, what are the missteps, what are the things that create unnecessary delays that are holding people up from achieving, qualified individuals from achieving an appointment to this academy. And we are committed to change that. One of the areas that I'll say is a challenge is we have seen some backlogs in areas such as our polygraphs. So we're addressing that by going to the commands and addressing that let's identify means with the overtime resources in which we can surge and we can get through these backlogs so that we can methodically go through each of the candidates in a reasonable fashion. If a candidate sustains a delay because of a qualification that they need to improve upon, whether it be something in finances or something in their background or proof of something, why these should not be delays that are months and months. These should be delays that are weeks and days. And those are the time frame in which we are pushing ourselves to improve because historically the public sector takes a very methodical and lengthy approach to hiring of personnel. It's not unique to the Los Angeles Police Department, sworn or civilian ranks. In fact, in regards to their sworn ranks, we actually outpace our competitors already. But that doesn't much matter when you look and see the length of time it takes in order to get.
So these meetings that are happening, did they say weekly or monthly?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. These are problem solvers going to those meetings or problem staters going to those meetings?
No. These are command level officers. This is Assistant Chief Choi, Deputy Chief Mark Reyna. These are the principals that I hold accountable to identifying and working through problems.
What about on the other side, though?
General Manager Dana Brown and Assistant General Manager Aaron McCraney,
Okay,
who's
good.
over the public sector. And those conversations are going on each week. Last week, there was issues that we're working through on polygraph issues and on appeals of polygraphs and so forth. We want to make sure that test or that examination is exploratory, that identifies individuals who may be involved in illicit or improper activities that would make them unqualified to be a member of this organization. But we also want to recognize the limits of that examination and that it not form a barrier because of individuals' reactions to that. So it's keeping those things in perspective and addressing where we see disparate impacts on particular groups or individuals is our commitment. And again, I believe hope rings eternal. We're going to improve this process, and this renewed emphasis and this renewed and specific interest by the mayor's office, I believe, is going to drive that change as well.
Okay, and last question, but it sounds obvious to me. But when issues are brought up, they quickly rise to the level of you and the mayor, and that's where these hurdles can be overcome if they are serious. If they get serious hurdles.
That is true, and again, I also want to thank the commissioners, the individual commissioners who are exploring this area. Commissioner Suthers, I know, for instance, your interest in this, Commissioner Briggs and others that are also learning of and getting in the weeds, if you will, and we welcome that because we think that, again, the department's focus on building trust in communities is relying upon a workforce that's qualified, trained, properly equipped, and motivated. And an understaffed workforce that's under a great deal of stress and overload of demands is not a productive environment. And it becomes self-fulfilling that it creates a workplace that people strive to move from instead of strive to come to. So we're going to work on this on a 360 on all aspects of this. It's not a singular effort. Again, rebuilding our staff as I started. Rebuilding our staffing is both a recruitment but also a retention matter. And it's not just bringing more people in while people are leaving at a heightened pace.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Soboroff. Commissioner Kalanche, any questions for Chief Moore?
Thank you, President Briggs. Chief, I wanted to ask you about the Metro situation. I keep hearing, all the different things that are happening on Metro, and it's a concern to me because the majority of the people that are on Metro are usually the most vulnerable, the poorest in our city or in our county. Just wanted to get some insight and also maybe a brief report on what we're doing to ensure safety on Metro, especially in the areas that we patrol.
Absolutely. So I'm happy at the President's direction to ask Deputy Chief Donnie Graham, Commander Natalie Cortez to come, Alex Baez, the captain of Metro of Transit Services Division, to come and make a presentation. I am encouraged by the focus of the MTA board as well as CEO Wiggins to amplify our work together with the LA Sheriff's Department in targeting individuals who are trafficking narcotics and identifying individuals who are suffering fentanyl overdoses or poisoning, of understanding what are the capital characteristics of these stations and the operations of these lines that contribute to unsafe conditions and a perception of a lack of safety. We have also shuffled our deployment so that much as we do in an area, we don't have just strict standard deployments where every line has an X amount of resources. We're now moving those resources and shifting our uniform presence and our investigative resources based on where we see the hot spots or where we see crimes being focused or issues of complaints being generated. For instance, today, our current effort is with the Red Line, and particularly the West Lakes station, as well as along the Hollywood corridor. We've seen dramatic double-digit decreases in reported violent crime as well as property crime. We have seen an increase in arrests for offenses such as carrying weapons, committing those types of crimes. And we've also had much greater encounters with individuals that are, we believe, riding it as a means of shelter, but we're doing that in concert with homeless outreach and service providers and mental health counselors so that we're not the point of that we're in fact using ambassadors and using the outreach and these other providers to give individuals services other than using the conveyance as a shelter. So it's multifold. I have not done it justice here in this brief description, and I welcome an opportunity to have us come and discuss what material impacts we've had. And our continued work is to make that line even safer.
Quick question. Do our officers actually ride the trains?
Oh, absolutely.
They're on the trains?
Yes. We have more than 150 shifts a day in which uniformed officers are riding. They are not just platform standers. They work on the platforms to understand the conduct of the commuting public, as well as those that come to those platforms and potentially engage in illegal activities or illicit activities. They work with the local ambassadors and security from transit to help improve those environments, but they also specifically ride bus and rail lines and to survey and to reassure the public of their presence. And again, our particular focus today with the red line, the blue line, the orange line, there's a number of lines, and of course now they're letters instead of in place of colors, but we're on those lines, but we've shifted, if you will, because of these, what we saw, particularly to the red line, this spat of instances. And so we're going to continue that evolution moving forward so that we don't become stuck in on a gold line that may have very few, if any, instances, and yet we have constant deployment there. Now we recognize that we're robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit. When you do that type of harvesting and you shift, you do open an opportunity for criminal element or others to try to take advantage of that. But we believe that with the daily review of crime information, of awareness with working with operators and the MTA Operations Center, that we can see and pick up early any emerging trend or series or pattern that we need to address.
Yeah, I think the gold line is mostly above ground, so that may make a difference. But I guess the other concern I have is I heard on the news today that ridership of women has dropped significantly. So trying to figure out, like, how do we assure women that are, going to work, that have to, especially like possibly going from the east side to the, other side of town, that need public transportation. How do we assure them that it's safe?
So a couple of things is in this is recognizing what the actual ridership is, and millions of riders that are occurring on the line, and we're not one to dismiss an act of violence or an individual that is suffers some type of violent crime or injury at the hands of another person on the line. We want to make sure that people understand that the throughput of this is that there's millions and millions of riders who are safely being able to transit the system. However, there's a perception, not only here in Los Angeles region, but across the country, of a lack of safety on these lines. There's a press report this morning about the increased level, a sense of a lack of safety on transit services across the entire country. So we need to deal with that perception by recognizing what are the things that add to it. Some of it's a news report. Other times it's just seeing you're on a transit line and you see a person who is clearly not just using that line for transportation and may be confrontational, may be engaging with others because of a mental health issue or because of a psychotic event or some other, and left unaddressed. That leaves a lasting remark that one person will tell 10 people who will tell another 10 people, and that's the perception, and now that's what's occurring on that line. So having a physical presence of officers, having officers that engage, make eye contact, just talk with the transit population, those that are using those rails, is an important element of this. Being seen, being recognized, and being present. It's not just the enforcement side. It's the physical presence and awareness that people can be reassured that there is an officer, that there are officers that are working, whether it's on a transit line or on platform stations or some combination thereof.
Okay. I just, want to plant a seed, I guess, for you to think about, like, how do we get this information out to the public, that the public transportation is safe in the city.
We are working with MTA with their communications folks in order to reinforce those. You also see Deputy Chief Graham. You'll see command officers as well that are frequenting the line. I rode the line a couple months ago, spent some time on the red line all through those various stations in order to engage both the traveling public, but also demonstrate that it's safe, and also to talk with the ambassadors and the other staff. Critically important to our success is the entire network of what MTA establishes for safety and security of their lines. It's not simply uniformed officers. It is also layered, and that the layered approach, those layers need to be effective and engaged. And I believe that our work with, for instance, the recently announced ambassador program is improving on what we as a society, what MTA is expecting that they can do, which is largely deal with non-criminal matters that are conduct, though, that is still disorders and left unattended, leaves people with a sense of a lack of safety. The code of conduct on the MTA is meant to ensure those traveling and the operators operating are safe, secure, and feel that this is an environment in which they're conducive to using, in contrast to some other means of transportation. That code of conduct should be enforced by every Metro employee and not solely by LAPD.
I agree.
And that is something that we're continuing to see growth within the MTA and achieving.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Calanche. And to follow up with this, Commissioner Calanche, Chief, I will ask that Deputy Chief Graham prepare a report for the Commission within the coming weeks so that we can have that presentation. I am mindful that MTA has a large role to play in this and keeping the public safe. with respect to transportation, and we have to work in partnership with them. It's not solely on the LAPD.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Suthers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, thank you for your report this morning. Just a comment and a question. Back to Metro Crime, your comments about presence are absolutely critical. I want to thank Chief Graham and Deputy Chief Woodyard. Last year, we had a series of particularly cell phone thefts on the platforms on the Expo line. And when those two chiefs deployed your SPU unit, your Special Problems Unit, I attend ComStat meetings very regularly, and those crimes have stopped. So presence is important. Just a question on the personal thefts of over 13% on retail. Does that appear to be an organized effort, or those opportunity crimes, and what are we doing to work with those retailers to prevent that?
Right. So it's we believe it's organized. They're organized opportunists, if you will. The top locations in our retail theft areas are major stores such as Nordstrom's, Sephora, Target. These are major brands. Now we see thefts that do occur at mom and pop stores as well, and we have heard and talked with retailers across the board that have seen a resurgence of this as we come out of COVID. What's important to us is that the Los Angeles Police Department established an organized retailer theft association. LAORCA is its acronym for Los Angeles, and we're renewing that work and reminding corporate leadership, directors, and others that the relationship of us is to work with them to prevent these type of thefts from occurring. I saw just recently the slippage, as they call it, within Target it was challenged. I think they identified a $900 million anticipated loss due to what's going out the front door. And we know that, for instance, some Target stores have instituted very effectively preventive measures so that they're securing those items that are frequently being taken. People oftentimes think of organized retail thefts that they're targeting, expensive jewelry. In reality, they're targeting things like basic clothing elements such as T-shirts, deodorant, sanitary supplies that can be easily resold, whether it be on the internet or it be through more unscrupulous retailers who purchase it from these organized crews. We see vendors, for instance, street vendors, who can be magnets, if you will, for these organized crews to come and offer them these stolen goods. And just frankly, I was in a store in the Valencia area, Santa Clarita, on an off-duty. I was home, traveling through there, and at a JCPenney's, when two individuals came in and stole or tried to steal about 15 pairs of jeans right out the front door, and chased the person down. They dumped it. Sheriff's Department's investigating that crime, but that's an organized effort. Those jeans were going to end up on a swap meet or a vendor someplace else for resale at a discounted price, and that unfortunately the clerk there, which was thankful for the interdiction, but they also are fearful of violence, and so those that are preying upon these establishments are aware of that, and they capitalize on that. So we've got to work with those retailers to improve, whether it be through security or through store designs and securing merchandise so that shopping public can have access, but that access can counter the ease in which people can quickly come in and take thousands of dollars worth of merchandise with relative ease, and which the consequences oftentimes are scant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Suthers. At this time, we're going to go to public comment. I'll remind everyone that we have a 45-minute time period here.
Okay, the first speaker we have is Myrna Gonzalez. Myrna Gonzalez and Sergio Gonzalez.
There you go. Try it again. I'm sorry.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Sergio González, soy tío de Oscar Alejandro.
Good morning, I'm Sergio Gonzalez. I am the uncle of Sergio, ¿cómo se llama?
Oscar Alejandro.
Oscar Alejandro.
Yo sé que por su trabajo y ética, hicieron su trabajo y lamento lo que pasó. Y pues yo la verdad estoy en contra de la violencia y de las armas.
I understand that the police did their job, and I appreciate what they did, but I personally am against gun violence.
Lo que sí pues quisiera como que influyeran en que a pesar de que los jóvenes sean mayores de edad, influyan los padres para que ellos tengan una rehabilitación y no pase lo que pasó con mi sobrino.
Even though individuals can be adults, I would want that there's more support for the parents, even though the individuals are adults, that they give more support to the parents for them to get the help they need.
Y que no vuelva a ocurrir esto para los jóvenes a futuro y que pase la desgracia como lo que pasó con mi sobrino. Y es todo, gracias.
I want this from happening again, just like it happened with my nephew. Thank you.
Buenos días. Yo soy la mamá de Oscar. Y pues como dijo mi hermano, ¿verdad? Que quisiera que los padres, aunque fueran mayores de edad, los muchachos los escucharan y se sintieran apoyados.
Good morning, I'm the mother of Oscar. As my brother mentioned, I just wish that the parents of the adult juveniles get more support.
Nosotros somos una familia tranquila. Solamente él era el de los problemas, pero sí me gustaría que hubiera más comunicación, porque a mí me hicieron muchas veces a un lado al buscarle ayuda a mi hijo.
We were a very tranquil family. He was the one with the problems. When I seek help, I was put aside without any assistance.
Sé que ustedes estaban en su trabajo, hicieron su trabajo. Yo sé que con esto que vengo a decirles no le van a devolver la vida a mi hijo, pero gracias también por los programas que ustedes le ofrecieron a él, porque sí le ayudaron.
I know you can't bring my son back, but I do want to say thank you for the programs that were given to me. They did help him.
Todo, gracias. Sí.
That's it, thank you.
Thank you for coming forward today.
Our next speaker is caller ending 1264. Caller ending 1264, you're on. Okay. We'll move on to the next Zoom speaker, Javier Hermosillo. Javier Hermosillo, you're on.
Good morning. I just have a simple request. It's been made by many others before. and I'm not sure that we have an answer. Uh, it's obvious that when people are calling in, they're waiting to find out if they're on deck. And you used to announce the caller, next caller, and then you stop that practice. I'm sure there's a reason behind it, but I think to expedite communication between the public and the police commission, uh, many of us, I'm not the only one that's ever asked, would really appreciate it if you could say who's on deck, because if someone's sitting waiting there like I just was, I'm waiting for the lady to finish in the translator, etc. And then all of a sudden you call my name, and so I may have been distracted. But if I hear that I'm on deck, then I'm going to be ready. I've been on these calls for many years, and that's just a word. And if you could please reconsider the move that was made to change that, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Jonathan Foster.
Hello, Jonathan Foster. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. So, not the commission that it once was. It all changed, but you're still the same sham unless you prosecute the OOPMs like the PhD, BOPCs, or the ARC reports, which is out of policy murders, are prosecuted. Otherwise, I support the LAPD. I'd like to see $45 an hour starting. I'd like to see the LAPD make $212,000 a year salary, and I'd like to see 9,000 more officers. That's what I'd like to see. But I got a lot of things to say about the 2% of gross. That's gross. Gross. So I got to play this again.
That deterrence has to be that there is also accountability. There's consequences. Has to be that there is also accountability. Has to be that there is also accountability.
It's got to be accountability.
So during the closed sessions, there's no secret that we adjudicate cases. Face the fucking wall! Face the fucking wall! You sure I'll fucking kill you?
So what I wanted to highlight, I'm not condemning the officer. One of the things I haven't been able to say is this officer was having his foot on the brake, getting the gun out, holding the door open, got his left foot on the door with his foot on the brake, and had the gun over there, and then like he would have shot that guy, but he moved. And I was thinking to myself, well, that's about as good as me playing the drum set, man. That's because most people can't play the drum set the way I can. Most people don't have control of their body the way I do. There's almost nobody in this room or in this town that is in the same league as I am. But this officer did very well. And I don't condemn him. Actually, Soberoff is mad about the swearing, I can tell. But that any parent brought a child here is an admission that LAPD is safe, headquarters is safe, LAPD is safe, or no one would bring kids here. The LAPD is safe. People do bring kids here. And one of the things I wanted to say about kids brought to the police station, you know what happens to them? Yeah, they become LAPD police officers. Yeah, you gotta be careful bringing your kids down here. Hey, they might be police officers, But do you realize how many mistakes the LAPD has made, right? So there was some talk about Diego José Miranda Lopez, and it went into the swearing thing. He didn't want to say nothing. But what's more damaging is to kids in society is when they find out way worse than swear words is the police can kill and many times are found out of policy. They did the wrong thing and nothing happens to them. And this is catastrophically damaging. I want to say there was still 3 weeks of no OIS, so there has been improvement. But I'm not still okay with spying. I want to end the bias, the badge tarnishers, ending taser deaths, turning the land over for big rich developers to get rich, that kind of stuff. Children on the gang database. I'm not for all these kinds of things, so thanks.
Next, we have Philip Tabby.
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Politics is driving the agenda in this police department. If you don't believe me, just wait until the details come out on the whistleblower lawsuit that involves Captain Johnny Smith. From moving a senior lead officer in the middle of a deployment period to demoting and transferring a captain because they both spoke truth to power. I get these talking points from Jim Jordan during the recent congressional hearing on the weaponization of government. Jim said, and I quote, "If you're one of the good employees in our government who come forward to talk about the targeting, then you become the target. You faced retaliation." Gee, Mike, does that ring a bell? You retaliated against Smith and Contreras because they reported the wrongdoing to the FBI. You did what you did because to please Monica, soft on crime Monica Rodriguez, because it involves her. You made a decision to demote and transfer an employee before even hearing his testimony. That's wrong, unethical, and goes against everything America stands for. But like everything else, you double down, Mike. You replace them with two of the worst options possible. Hands-on Lozano and good boy Godoy. Lozano's first CPAB meeting, he shows no respect to the community members, cursing at other drivers out the window in a city vehicle, in uniform, on camera. He has poor contact with the community, and his senior lead officer, Godoy, is MIA as well. I wonder if he'll ever even hold a coffee with a cop, or is he too busy chumming it up with Monica? I can tell you there is a P2 that's running circles around this guy. Mike, you came to our community and said we were throwing a pity party. You have even held a meeting to get rid of me. You're not a leader, Mike. You never will be. Monica's attitude at the budget hearing was disgusting as she asked for more money from the LAPD budget. One item is to fund Mission Pals. Usually that funding comes from the council member's budget, but you might cower to her. There's a reason why we call you Chief Bended Knee. Monica seems she runs the LAPD. She makes a phone call because she doesn't like one of our CSP officers, and that captain had to tune him up. That captain was afraid to get Smith if she spoke up. You lead with fear, Mike. Officers are not going to recruit for LAPD. You know, pretext stops, blue line flag, you got rid of it. The morale is low as can be. We have a chief of police who's going to just throw you under the bus for political reasons. And if I got a minute more, why does the deputy chief attend every Foothill CPAB meeting this year except for May due to the Memorial Ride? If he is going to keep visiting our every month, it's only fair that he visits every CPAB meeting every month and stays the.
Okay, thank you.
The next speaker has 1 minute on public comment, and it's spelled VATCH. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Good morning. My name is Vache Sharikchian. Thank you, Police Commission, for letting us comment here. And I want to start by thanking Mayor Bass for acknowledging the problems that we're experiencing in the Jewelry District and setting aside $3.5 million for overtime for the next fiscal year. Although the chief has mentioned about the lowered property crime and the violent crime occurring throughout the city or throughout the department, specifically in the Jewelry District, we are seeing a notable uptick. So on the micro level, we're disproportionately being hit. Just in the past month, there are 2 incidences in our alleys that are in the hands of the Robbery Homicide Division. There are 3 incidences in the past 7 or 8 days that are in the hands of the FBI task force because of the Colombians and the Peruvians that are targeting us. There are multiple smash and grabs. Half of them don't even get reported because the victims don't want to be attacked. If I can please have another minute.
Yes, please give him another minute.
There are multiple reports that are not reported because the majority of us are immigrants. I wasn't born here. Pretty much everybody else is not born here, and we're afraid of being attacked again. And we're just small micro businesses. We're trying to do the best we can. The only thing that gave us any kind of breath of fresh air or any kind of room to breathe between last summer, this past fiscal year, or the fiscal year that we're in right now, was footbeat details. Our LAPD Central is down 100 officers, so even though the department is down approximately 10%, Central, as I understand it, is down from 400 to 300. Our special details, our bikes, our district details, all those details are gone. Our footbeats are down 20. So the only thing that gave us any kind of a kind of breath of fresh air was the overtime detail. That expired in the end of March. Since then, we've been getting hit really hard. We are asking for foot beats and bike patrols between now and the end of the fiscal year before July 1st begins. Our simple ask, please, for bike patrols and foot beats. LAPD Central has made it clear that this is the only way they're able to slow down and stop crime. We have a lot of constituents here. I don't know how many of them will be able to get to talk, but we appreciate you listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have T.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All of them, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Really disturbing that Moore didn't even mention the rapist, Paul Razzo. Briggs had to mention it because Moore had more to say about street takeovers and Fast and Furious in the Metro. Spend a lot of time on that, but didn't have much to say about somebody in your apartment that's a known sexual predator. Died in your all's custody mysteriously. We really don't care. He's gone, but the fact that he resigned and wasn't fired, disgusting. That's your culture. And then you murdered a black man, said he had a gun, right? Just, what was it, last week? Can y'all say his name even? $1 million for SWAT. We oppose that. $300,000 for robot dogs. We oppose that. Right? This is a violent, evil, racist culture. And no amount of money that 87 million y'all were just awarded can fix this. What fixes that is you take that money and put it in our communities. We're still in the middle of a housing crisis coming out of a pandemic, a mental health crisis, but y'all keep doing the same sickening things, right? The same scenarios, the same solutions, and nothing's getting fixed, right? It's unacceptable. Like, y'all have predators on your force and you don't even really want to address it. You don't address accountability for the black on lives you've murdered. I mean, how many more bodies gotta fall in these streets, right? And then you push this propaganda on the community and you give us 45 minutes to speak in your setting. One, you need to extend 45 minutes because there's 4 million people in this community. How is 45 minutes in public comment acceptable? And we need out of this situation where it's in the police building, right? It should be in a community, in a time people can go, right? This is just unacceptable. Every single thing y'all do is just, it's mind-blowing. Like, how can we keep, it's the definition of insanity to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results, right? We want freaking Soberov gone. We want more gone. We want to dismantle this and put money in black and brown communities for services that we need. This is just a culture of evil you can't fix.
The next speaker on public comment, Tavit Krankormurler. Tavit.
Hello, Commission. My name is Tavit Kangorbazer. I have 3 properties on Hill Street, Jewelry. I managed the building almost 45 years. I have never seen so much crime since my existence on the Hill Street on the Jewelry properties. All the buildings are full and we're collecting rent accordingly. We're paying taxes to the city, millions of dollars of taxes we're paying, and we are under security. There is no security at all. We beg you, please provide us more foot patrol, bike patrol, and horse patrol like we used to have in the 80s. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Steve Rogers.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Where are the footbeats? Where are they? Can anyone tell me where the footbeats are in, let's say, Central Division, downtown Los Angeles? You have people from the jewelry community coming to you talking about they need footbeats. Where is the footbeat in, let's say, Chinatown? This is Asian American Pacific Islander Month. Is there a footbeat there? When Chief Chow gave his talk, and it was a very good presentation on behalf of the Law Enforcement Association of Asian Pacifics and AAPI Month, there were some inaccuracies, but overall it was pretty good. Where are the officers that look like those who are in the community? Where are the bilingual officers? There was a footbeat there, 2 Hispanic officers most recently. I don't think they're there now. Did they speak the language? Did they look like the population? You don't have to look like the population. That's superficial. But there were police officers in the past that worked that area, some of Chinese heritage, some not. And they were very effective. They reduced the incidence of crime and the fear of crime. So where are the footbeats? The Chinatown substation is also the Koban in Little Tokyo. Where's the Little Tokyo footbeat? It isn't there. Where's the Broadway footbeat? Now, I understand that you have tremendous challenges when it comes to staffing. Okay, where's the problem there? If I were a young man, would I join the LAPD? No. And one of the reasons is Chief Moore, with taking out the blue line flag out of Rampart Station, bending the knee to BLM, the Bolsheviks lying Marxist. What message does that send? If anyone is thinking about a career in law enforcement, talk to the local union. Talk to, in LAPD's case, the LAPPL, the Police Protective League. What are they saying? What do the surveys say? You have to improve morale. You have to empower the officers. You have to make community policing work. That's your job. If everybody did their job, we'd be living in a much safer city. And that goes to prosecution, city attorney, district attorney. I hope you're listening, your offices. Where are the prosecutions for crime? If you want to read a good book about how to turn things around, read Turnaround by former Chief Bratton. Read that book. New York went through a lot of the same things that Los Angeles is going through now. It is awful. It can be turned around, but you need leadership and vision, and we're not getting it. What you need on the metro, you need undercover officers right behind when people come in. If they don't pay the fare, they get stopped and they get a citation. Uniformed officers close by. Okay? Start using some innovative strategies and start leading. When you do that, when you write the ticket, it turns to a warrant most likely because a lot of people are not going to take care of those warrants. People have to go to jail as a result. Read the book Turnaround. You'll find out what I'm talking about in more detail. If you want to see real police work and police culture, you've got to go back to watch Adam 12 on MeTV. TJ Hooker, if you can find the episodes. Thank you.
The next speaker on public comment, Randy Wire.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Randy Weir. I'm 70 years old. I've been in the jewelry district for more than 40 years. I've never seen anything like this in all my years. The thugs are so brazen without fear of being caught or stopped. I recently got my CCW permit as I travel all Hill Street, seeing my customers, and I'm in fear for my safety, as others are. So we expect some police protection with foot patrols, bicycle or horseback police presence to help protect our Hill Street community and our businesses. Thank you.
Next, we have Josie.
Hi, good morning. My name is Josie Zarati. And I just want to say, as always, LAPD is the greatest protector of people. And whoever thinks differently, I know they cannot do a better job. I do want to suggest that the people that call in to complain or to give suggestions, could we send an email or a letter to somebody rather than hear ourselves talk every time? Because it seems like the people that complain, they complain about all there is wrong, but they're not bringing anything. I bring issues to my police officer, Officer Godoy, who is the greatest officer we ever had in our community. We had many, many officers. We had good officers, but this has been the best. And if anybody says something wrong, they can, something different, they can come and see me, because I can show you that my community has never been as safe and as clean as it is today. My hat goes out to Officer Godoy and also the Foothill Police Station. I can't say nothing better than the best so far. And anything that you need to do a better job, I'm all for it. If you ever need community assistance, I'm your first volunteer, #1 volunteer for anything that you guys need, especially for Foothill Division. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Zach Sherwin on all items.
This commission is a rubber stamp. There are well over $1 million in donations on today's agenda, and you agendize them as consent items, deeming them routine and non-controversial, to quote the agenda. And according to the agenda, you want to minimize the time on these matters so you can spend time on things that are more significant. While item 3D is for over $1 million in recruitment and employment, that's a significant amount of money. It's not routine. It is controversial. In fact, commissioners, 2 of you asked questions about recruitment, and you usually don't ask questions about anything, even when police officers rape children. So clearly, whatever your side of the issue is, you don't think this is a minor one. You might construe your evident interest in the topic as an indication that there might be some there, something to discuss. But will any of you exercise your option to move this to the regular agenda? No. You're going to rubber stamp it through, and it'll sail through unchallenged. And it's especially tough to wrap one's brain around all the urgency around recruitment when the chief reports that, quote, we continue to see reductions in violent crime. We enjoy reductions in all of our property crimes, except personal theft. So crime is down, but also you need $1 million more because your officers are overwhelmed and under the waterline. Which is it? Because both ways doesn't make sense. And meanwhile, the cops who are on the force are out there shooting people. The chief told us that officer-involved shootings are up this year. You reported 3 times as many in-custody deaths this year over last year. Commissioners, why don't you ever ask questions about that? A 300% increase in in-custody deaths this year. Why are we forced to hear this man yammer on about stolen jeans? What an embarrassment for our city. What a waste that we do have a commission charged with providing oversight of our police, but the people that it's composed of are you 5. And I have to say, to the jewelers who are here, I am genuinely sorry. That's a problem that you are getting property stolen from you. But to watch the difference, commissioners, in your demeanor between when that brokenhearted mother whose child was killed by LAPD was up here breaking down and crying at this podium, to see that some of the commissioners were looking down at what I really hope was not your phone while that mother was talking, and to see all of you nod and the, lack of a significant response to that besides sort of like eyebrows up nodding at her, to see that versus all of you perking up like a bunch of attack dogs when you hear these guys talking about how their stores are getting robbed, which again, I'm not trying to minimize, but commissioners, shame on you. Just shame on you to watch that happen. The 2 killings you'll talk about in closed session were of Oscar Santiago and Jesus Rodolfo Torres, who was killed as he lay on the ground with a helicopter overhead, and 10 Newton Gang Enforcement Division cops shooting at him because he moved his hands. On May 15th, the Times reported that an ex-LAPD officer was charged with sexually assaulting 4 kids while on the force. No mention of that today, huh? I yield the rest of my time to today's meeting.
Next, we have caller ending 1264.
Hello?
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
I need to speak on all of them.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Yeah, Chief Moore. I'm over here in the San Fernando Valley with the Foothill Division, and we've had a problem with illegal vending, and obviously the police have to go out when they do food inspections, and we've had food inspections in 5 years. And they say that the food inspection people say that they have to talk to the police department, and the police department says there's nobody available to do it. This is community policing. And I don't understand. I mean, this is really causing a huge problem in my community. These people are drinking in the parking lot of another business. Their business customers are coming onto that parking lot and pretty much just taking over. And then we have the street takeovers because there's all those people there, and they're just drinking. And we had an accident that happened in that area too, where somebody had died pulling out of that place. I don't know if he's drunk. I mean, obviously we don't get any information about that situation. But one thing is your authority needs to matter. When your police officers go there and they have an ordinance or a law, that needs to matter. That needs to be precedent over anything else, because I feel like our community is being criminalized. We're not decriminalizing, we're criminalizing our community by allowing all this riffraff and chaos to go on. I have more, but the catalytic converters, nobody is reporting them. Nobody is really reporting anything because they don't feel that the police is there for them. The criminals are the ones that are really controlling our streets right now. That's the way I feel. We need to feel safe. Your numbers don't mean anything if we don't feel safe, because there's so much illegal activity going on out in those streets. That's all for right now. Thank you. I appreciate you guys taking my call. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Ari Madillian. On public comment.
Good morning. My name is Ari Madillian. I've been in the Los Angeles Jewelry District for 35 years. Actually, I've been there for 45 years. 35 years of it has been owning my own business. I would like to thank the Commission for giving us the time to speak today. I would like to also thank Mayor Bass for earmarking funds for next year's Foot Patrol. I have an incredible amount of respect for all of you that are on this board and the things that you have to deal with. It cannot be easy every day to deal with all of these issues. I'm here to point out that this next coming month is a very important time in the Jewelry District, because there is one of the main jewelry events that happens in Las Vegas that takes place between the end of May until about mid-June. This is when all of these goods are being transported back and forth from LA and all of the other cities that are coming into these worldwide fairs. That's one of the biggest ones in the country. And as well as all the jewelers and the clients that are coming in, all of the gangs also, may I have another minute, please? All of the gangs as well have this on their schedule. They're very well, we know them when we show up, we recognize them, they almost nod at you with their coffee cup. It's crazy. LA has been, as many of my colleagues have said, has been incredibly unsafe. It's been scary. Every time we're walking to our cars, we're looking around to make sure we're not going to be jumped. And knowing that even if you see that you're going to be jumped, there's nothing you can do. There are follow homes, there are damaging of cars, putting sensors in cars to follow people. I think there were 3 robberies in the last 10 days. So we're feeling incredibly unsafe. I know that this may not be a top priority when safety comes of other things, but we really, really would appreciate consideration. We know that the Foot Patrol makes a huge difference. It has in the past, it continues to. So we appreciate it, and thank you for the consideration, and thank you, and good luck to everything that you have to deal with.
Sir, can you tell me the time frame that you would seek a Foot Patrol in your area?
I think that it's an all-day thing, but probably the reality of it is probably between 10 o'clock to 5 p.m. We've had several jewelers that got followed to Pershing Square parking lot, which is where a lot of the jewelers park. And it's just a very unsafe park to begin with. There's a few security guards, but the security guards look more threatening than the actual people that are using the park. So that's, I would say, probably between 10 and 5 o'clock. I know that there are police cars that are parked on the street, on Hill Street, due to all of the work that some of my colleagues have done with the police department. And it helps a little bit, but I think there's nothing that helps as much as seeing physical police officers. We had a brawl last week on Hill Street with, I think, a dozen bikers, 15, 16-year-olds that jumped on they pulled out a guy out of a pickup truck and proceeded to beat him on the ground. And there's multiple videos of it online. They beat him on the ground with, I could say, probably 100 people watching, including security guards of buildings, which don't want to get involved, which I can't blame them. And finally, they backed off. I'm not sure how the entire situation started, but evolved into that where it was a full, a complete beating of an individual out of control with 10, 15-year-olds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
And our last Zoom caller, Gina Viola.
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
It is a travesty watching these meetings and watching your reactions when people have the bravery to get up and speak to you about their family members being killed by police. You don't even have the courtesy to pay them any attention. You were on your phones, you were looking away, you were disengaged. Meanwhile, you've clearly organized a group of jewelers to come in and clamor for more foot patrols. Well, the truth about the reason why people don't feel safe in our city is because we have so many people living in our city whose basic needs aren't being met. And the reason their basic needs aren't being met is because we give the lion's share of our budget to the LAPD. And yet here we are. Crime continues to go down. You reported it was down. Last meeting it was down. The meeting before that it was down. But you have folks coming in saying they still don't feel safe. You have folks calling in saying they still don't feel safe. Public safety is about public health. And because you have stolen all of the resources, it is impossible for us to have any robust kind of public health in this city. Folks are just devastated. We have tons of folks living on the streets. We have police still killing people. I'm so appalled watching on the Zoom so close to my face. Your reactions today have just been shameful, embarrassing. Every week I say this, Steve Soboroff needs to resign. You need to resign. The way you speak about Black people in these meetings is appalling. I don't understand how you are still on this commission. I don't understand how the commissioners sitting beside you are okay doing so. You need to come off, and all of you need to resign. We need a board that truly is oversight, not people sitting. Steve Soboroff gets to gentrify the neighborhoods he wants to purchase. That's why he sits there. I know that. The rest of you, I've watched as people's nonprofits have been enriched as a result of sitting on this board. Shane Murphy Goldsmith was on this board, and Liberty Hill went from less than $1 million a year in donations to millions of dollars a year in donations. Right? Is that what's going to happen with Lou Calanche's nonprofit? I mean, this is such a show, and it is such a travesty because the police keep killing people. The demand no longer is defund the police, it's disarm the police. The police cannot kill people. If the police are so bad at their jobs that they have to kill somebody holding a cell phone, running away, laying on the ground, these are the instances your officers keep killing people in. Mental health crisis. And I'm very sorry for the family members in the room that have.
The next speaker on public comment is Patrick Bergudian.
Hello, my name is Patrick Bergudian. Thank the Commission for the chance to comment. I echo my colleagues here in appreciating your time today. I'm here representing the dealers in small offices in the Jewelry District. My family has had a small business here in downtown for the last 30 years. We are individually being targeted by an increasingly sophisticated campaign of theft and violence, decreasing our ability to invite and host outside business. My father was specifically targeted in an individual situation. Thankfully, his alertness and nearby security was able to thwart the attack from the 4 would-be assailants. As major trade conventions are coming up in early June, we hope to be welcoming businesses coming in from around the world, a comforting presence in our district. While the message of danger and theft still looms, we are requesting a presence of footbeat and bike details between now and June 30th to increase the confidence and perception that we have the strength as a unified community to help support our local business. Thank you.
The next speaker, Kalpesh Javeri on public comment.
Good morning. My name is Kalpesh Javeri.
I'm the president of the Diamond Club West Coast, and like my colleagues here, I don't just represent the 300 members who are on this club, but actually the hundreds and thousands of jewelers and artisans, setters, manufacturers, watchmakers who have been calling this part of the world their home and their business. Yes, we are under attack, and I will, before that, thank the commission, the councilman, as well as the mayor for earmarking some funds for us in the next fiscal year. In the meantime, we do have problems now. The problems are not just from the lack of police and beats on the floor, but it's the fear that our customers, who basically fuel the taxes and the business that is fueling all these independent jewelers, retailers, wholesalers. And for that reason, we do request you to please consider increasing your presence, increasing your footbeats, your bike patrols, etc. Not just now and not just the next fiscal year, but on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
The next speaker on public comment, Lisa Kim. Okay. Then the next speaker, Lon Stein.
Thank you for your time and the funding by the mayor to help keep our city clean. Marine Corps, 2 years. I've been followed home twice, once robbed 6 people with automatic weapons on me, once attempted robbery with a knife. Didn't go too good for him. We have a hot spot in Los Angeles that's never been cleaned up. It's called Pershing Square, where they sit with an earpiece in their ear, dressed in designer-type clothes, follow us home. So if you had additional patrol, feet on the ground, help clean us up. Any questions? Ask us. Thanks for your time, and the mayor, excuse me, with the funding.
The next speaker on public comment, Charles Carmona. And the final speaker, Sam Barkati.
First, thank you for the chance that gave us. It's great that we can talk to you guys, but I feel like everything was covered with my colleague. But the only things I want to say here, we are not responsible only for ourselves. We have a lot of employees that work from us, and they are really they have issue to go out right now in our district. They really they don't know, should I say no to our boss or should I yes, because they don't feel safe when they go out the office. There's one more thing I want to add to the all the other comments that my colleague made. And thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, that ends public comment period. We're going to go to the consent agenda items. At the request of Commissioner Suthers, we're going to hold aside items 3, D, and F. I move we approve items A, B, C, E, G, H, I, and J. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Mr. President, if I may, the department requested on item 3F that the Southwest area donation for $521.67 be pulled from the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tupay. Item F, the Southwest area, $521.67 will be pulled from the agenda. Can we have Deputy Chief Reyna come forward, please?
Which items are you holding? Please repeat. Just say the letter.
D and F. Do we have Commander Spell? Can you come forward too? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Chief. Commissioner Suthers.
Morning. Item D,
on recruitment and marketing, what's written in the document is we're going to test new marketing messages and materials. My question is, how is that effectiveness going to be measured? And I have a question and a comment. Have we given any thought to the demographic we're intending to attract to develop our message? You know better than I do, this is a different generation. As I've been told several times by 20-somethings, we don't read email. I think it's an opportunity to build a relationship. Have we considered engaging with community members of that demographic to help us draft our messages to recruit the people of that demographic? And by the way, I am, Chief, I am one of the people, as you mentioned, attending the bi-weekly meetings on recruiting. This is very important to me. Commissioner, President Briggs assigned me to that subcommittee. So I'm really engaged here and want to know how we're going to do things differently, A, and B, how we're going to measure it.
Yes, thank you, sir. So as we move forward with our overall marketing and advertising strategies, both for the department and what the foundation is going to do here with this grant request, first, $75,000 of that will be used where the foundation will go into contract with a private firm to look and analyze at strategies and best practices in that marketing and advertising to make sure that we're not, in a sense, wasting that money on things that we've done in the past. How do we reach new generation? How do we reach different demographics, things of that nature? That's where that analysis will come through. Once the foundation gets that and analytics back and that analysis back on how to move forward with the marketing and advertising, they'll use that with their contract with whichever vendor they go into contract with for the marketing and advertising. To answer your question regarding reaching certain demographics, looking for our strategic goals that we have of increasing the number of females that we're trying to hire, increasing the numbers of African American applicants, Asian Pacific Islander, that will be put into the, in a sense, the contract with whatever vendor that the foundation would like to go into contract with to address those issues and how are they going to reach those demographics, how are they going to reach those communities. And we can take your idea of having different community stakeholders involved in that process and bring that to the board to say that we'd like to have the voice of the community in that process, just in case the analysis is missing that or the vendor's not touching on that, to make sure that it's all inclusive.
Can I bring up a? If I could clarify just for a moment though too, as indicated in the grant application, this is, when you say demographics, we want to, first of all, I want to recognize, and I want to recognize personnel of the department and the department, our department, for its outreach and engagement that's been ongoing. We are productive, and we are, in the last number of years, hired record numbers of individuals, but at the same time seen record numbers leave. So we need to increase that, but we are sensitive that the demographics be representative of all the diverse communities in Los Angeles. And our targeted efforts will be in that means. We're looking for qualified individuals of all walks of life within Los Angeles that can meet the requirements of this department. The outreach effort by the independent amount that Chief Random talked about with an outside firm is to look at everything we've done in the last 2 or 3 years and say, what are the ones where we're getting signal strength strong? And what are the ones that we are essentially, people are clicking through? They're not, we're preaching to the choir, so to speak. We're attracting us to look at our own ads. That's not a productive way. So I'm hopeful for that. We're also looking with a portion of this to invest in training and development of our media relations so that they understand as the messaging they're engaged in, how that messaging, both internally and externally, aids and can add to the optimism and the idea that this is a challenging profession, but one that's also rewarding. And we think that the combination of those two and the remaining amount then going into the free market, and this is not in the marketing arena, these are not an overindulgence in marketing. Marketing is a very expensive engagement, whether it's print or radio or media or any social media. So we believe that the combination, though, of investing both current efforts of ongoing increasing the velocity in markets that target the demographics that we wish to apply for us, in concert with building a longer investment ability within our media relations and in our recruitment division, will provide lasting results. So this is both a short-term and a longer term strategy. One thing that this also provides for is that this will be funding that is not entirely dependent on the personnel department. Currently, our marketing outreach through paid marketing is via the personnel department. And what we've seen during that is there's sometimes a gap in regards to the what we believe is whether or not the messaging is effective. And we say that in part by reviewing applicants that are in our academy today. We survey regularly now each month the academy graduates or academy applicants that are actually in the seats. And we ask them what worked and what didn't work. And also along the process, what did they experience? From these steps, I think that we'll see an improvement in all of our results. And we're gonna measure it by results. The results is, are we getting not just the eyeballs, but are we getting the applicants? Are we getting, what is the tuning fork so that this actually results in people applying for this organization and that those applications are successful?
No, thank you, Chief. Again, I just want to emphasize the opportunity to be community-driven. If I could step out of the lane for a second, I engaged last year in a pedestrian safety campaign. And we went out and got students, all races, international students, disabled students, and they designed the campaign. That campaign was received very differently by the community when they knew who did it. I'm highly recommending that we try to at least embark on a partial basis, if not a majority basis, of this effort being community-driven. You're trying to attract people from the community. They need to have an opportunity for input for the materials and the messages that we put out to try to get those individuals to apply to this department. And I think it's a great opportunity, again, to build some bridges.
Yes, sir.
To your point, Commissioner, there are some pro bono firms, diverse pro bono firms, that are providing science. This is about science. Some things work and some things don't work, and have provided the department their standard communication that gets a certain response, and then showed a series that get 10 times that response and a series that get 1/10 that response. That will continue to communicate and help with this effort without being paid for it, just providing expertise and science. And it may not be Twitter today, but it is TikTok, and it is Facebook, and it is Instagram. And one of the things that we ran into is in an organization, corporate or law enforcement organization, when your boss comes in and says, put this out on social media, what's the employee supposed to do? Put it out on social media, but training our employees to say, sir, if you give me 5 minutes to modify what you're doing, I think I can get 10 times the response of the specific reason that you're doing this. And so this is, it's not just, there's science to this. And that's why companies pay tens of millions and billions and 5 million for a lousy Super Bowl ad, is to do this right. And it's important that it does it right and does reach the people that you're mentioning, that we want it to reach, and give them an opportunity for themselves to make a determination without all the winds from the outside and all the extreme pressures that are on people not to do this, to give people an opportunity to make a decision for themselves. And I think the department is ready to do that in its beginning, and that this is a good step.
Thank you. Commissioner Suthers, any further questions or comments with regard to item 3D?
No, sir.
Commissioner Calanche.
Thank you. Couple of comments. One is there's a staffing shortage in all industries, right? So it is an uphill battle for everyone. But I think that what I've learned in the last few months or actually in the last probably 10 years, is that while recruiting young people, you have about a minute or two. Everything happens quick. If you don't facilitate like them getting the information, being able to contact someone right away, you're gonna lose them. So there's a marketing, but then there's also the mechanics of getting that person in or getting the interest. So that's all I would say. I'm sure that there's experts that can probably tell you more. But I think we need to improve our systems because I think it's still very difficult to even apply, right? So looking at those systems, I think the other thing I would say that I would hope that we make the same investment in some of those issues brought up by women to facilitate that the lactation rooms are working properly, that we're accommodating women, that we're promoting women, all those institutional things that women have been raising, that we invest the same amount of resources in making those happen as we are in investing in bringing in new recruits. We're going to bring in women when women know that this is a productive job that means a lot, but that also is accommodating to the needs of women, right? So I would say, if we're going to invest in recruiting women, let's ensure that we're also investing in making those things happen that are important to keep our women employed and happy and feeling respected in this department.
Yes. If I can add, Commissioner, you're right about the process when they go online. We look at 3 to 5 to 7 clicks, depending, and you tend to lose people. So we're hoping with not only what we're seeing in our internal research, but also with an outside firm looking at this to make that process easy to get them to the joinlepd.com to start the process. And we're also looking at that once that process starts, how can we streamline that, make it more efficient in the 7-step process that the chief had already referenced, plus increasing our productivity with our recruiters, mentors, advisors, and the whole process going through, whether polygraph or background or medical screening, things like that, to improve that efficiency straight through so we can get them through the process quicker.
For instance, young people don't even want you to call them. They won't answer. Like, you need to text them, right? So it's like all these nuances of like how to connect with that population that you're targeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Calanche. At this time, there being no further questions on item 3D, I move that we approve item 3D. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Let's go to item 3F. Commander Spell.
Good morning.
So, Commander, we have $11,425 for cadets and chaperones to the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
Correct, sir.
Always supportive of young people going to cultural and educational institutions, but I noticed there's more than $6,000 for tickets. I'm just curious, mathematically speaking, did we send that many hundred young people to the library? It's $23 per person to go there. I just want to make sure that in $6,000 worth of tickets, that's how many people went.
I would have to get an absolute confirmation that many people went.
No, let me clarify. I think this is going forward, isn't it?
My understanding is that it's going forward.
Okay.
So this is not
Some prior trip.
all grant requests are made to be accepted and then expended.
My error, okay.
Always.
So we're looking at sending that many young people to the library.
We're looking at sending.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. So if there's any further questions from any other commissioners?
Actually, really quick follow-up to that. If we don't send that many people to the library, how do we know that we didn't? And then where does that money go?
We would have our cadets RSVP, our youth services officers. They would make sure that they have an accountability as to how many signed up for it, how many actually attended. And then in terms of returning that money, I'm not quite sure on that process, but I can follow up and get back to you on that.
Okay.
Any funds that are not spent, we go back to the LA Youth Foundation. So it's a line item type approval. And at my quick math, I think you said $23. I'm not familiar, Commissioner. $22.95. So I can't, that comes out to about 260 tickets. And we have about, how many how many cadets?
It's 150 for the Valley, sir.
Yeah. So this is, and that's just, so if you times that by 4, we think we'll exceed this. Yeah.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I move that we approve item 3F. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Thank you. This concludes open session. We're going to be in recess for closed session at this time.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 4A and 4B in accordance with Government Code 54957.
Okay, we're back.
The Board of Police Commissioners has concluded its work in closed session. We are back in open session. The Executive Director will report out.
Item 4A1, officer involved shooting number 027-22. The commission adopted the chief's recommendations on a 4-0 vote. Those recommendations were tactics, tactical debrief, 2 police officer 2s, drawing and exhibiting in policy, 2 police officer 2s, lethal use of force in policy, 2 police officer 2s. Item 4A2, officer involved shooting 030-22. Commission adopted the chief of police recommendations on a 4-0 vote. Those recommendations were tactics, tactical debrief, 1 police officer 2, administrative disapproval, 1 sergeant 1, 3 police officer 2s, 3 police officer 3s, 7 police officer 2s. Drawing and exhibiting in policy, 1 sergeant 1, 3 police officer 3s, 8 police officer 2s. Less lethal use of force in policy, 1 police officer 2. Lethal use of force in policy, 1 police officer 3, 3 police officer 2s. Out of policy, administrative disapproval, 1 sergeant 1, 1 police officer 3, and 4 police officer 2s. As it relates to items 4B, 1, 2, and 3 adjudicated. That concludes the report out.
Thank you, Mr. T. Fink. At this time, there being no further business before the Board of Police Commissioners, I move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.